Welcome back, sports fans, to Two Birds and a Third Sports Podcast. I'm here with Josh, Ricky, and Hank, and we have a packed show. It is our Super Bowl preview, guys. How you guys all feeling this week?
Meh. I mean, it's another Super Bowl, I guess.
Man.
It's
Yeah,
another Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl after the Eagles Super Bowl. That's what we're gonna call it.
that's very typical of you NFC Eastern fans. Okay, come on now, get into the Super Bowl. This is a big one. We have what's it called?
We got some big storylines coming.
Well, I mean, come on, we got the Rams and we got the Patriots.
It's a rematch of what? 17 years ago?
Exactly. That's what I was about to bring up later.
17-year rematch. Dude.
17-year rematch.
It's been 84 years.
Well, I know it's been a long time since the Cowboys have been in the Super Bowl too. I know, but sometimes you just have to move on. Anyways, like I said, we have a big show. We got Media Day. Talk about Roger Goodell. He finally talked about, came public of the non-call in the Saints and Rams game. We'll get into that later. The Patriots, are they going to continue their dynasty? The Rams are favored by the people, but they're underdogs in Vegas. We'll go through some awards. And finally, our picks for the season-ending Super Bowl, the Rams and the Patriots. So, guys, we're going to start out today with not really a report on our team. We're going to stick this purely to the Super Bowl. We'll start off with the big topic today. Media Day. We had a lot of different interviews. The one that kind of stuck out, obviously, was the Roger Goodell one, who he had finally spoke about what happened against the Rams and the Saints. The Rams and the Saints obviously had a big non-call that happened late in the game that could have sealed the fate of the Rams and them not going to the Super Bowl. But unfortunately, the Saints ended up losing in the NFC Championship in overtime by a 58-yard field goal by Greg Zorley. Now, I want to get you guys' takes. I know we talked about it a little bit last week, but coming in and you heard Roger Goodell and everything he said, what was your reaction? Is it just plain old Roger Goodell that we normally get? Because he kind of alluded to the truth that it really is a not a mistake-free game. There's a lot of stuff that happens in a game that we can't control, and human element, obviously, with human refs. What did you guys take his take? Oh, what was your take on his take, I guess? Ricky.
I mean, he was just playing politics, plain and simple. I mean, Roger Goodell, he's not going to give you a direct answer because, well, obviously it depends on the topic, but in regards to this, he wasn't going to give you a full answer because, let's be honest with you, he knows that it was the wrong call to be made. I'm pretty sure he even made that evident. He said, well, refs are human, blah, 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 blah. It's like, and the thing is yes, technically in the rule book, he does have the power to do rematches and whatever you could say about it. But to be honest with you, this is one of those moments where it was like, look, we know that there was an egregious call that wasn't made. As a result, the best, like, it's like the best thing you can do is say, sorry, we got it wrong. And I don't blame him there. I mean, what is he supposed to do? He can't, like, just bend the whole rules for that. And then, like I said, a while ago about Roger Goodell, I'm not a big fan of him. I think that during his tenure, the NFL has gotten a lot of controversy. I'm not saying, is it correlated to him, this, that, and the third. There are many instances that are correlated to him. His suspensions of certain players, his non-suspensions of certain players, his handlings of certain things, this, that, and the third. But if we're going to take anything away from this media day about what happened in the league year, the number one thing that they had to fix is it's not going to be perfect, don't get me wrong, but the number one thing is they have to clamp down with the referee. They need to fix that. That is the number one thing they got to fix is the officiating. It was atrocious this year for any team.
How do you fix it?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
I think the biggest thing that I took away is I'm surprised that he said anything. I mean, you could say that, he's the commissioner of the NFL. You're probably, thinking maybe he needs to share an explanation for what happened. But I think we could all, those of us who have eyes, I think we can all tell what happened. The referees that they put on the field with the rule book that is put in place with the elevated rules, and everything changes every single year and certain officials have certain standards. I think to the point in time where these officials are just incompetent and not because they're stupid, not because it's their fault. But the way the league is set up and the way the rules are set up, these referees are unfortunately imperfect. And there are things that you can put in place in order to make sure that the NFL and the league is able to run smoothly on an official level or to help the referees out. But I think one of the big things that the league has to do is the league needs to stop protecting the referees. I think that's the biggest thing. I think that it should not be a rule that you can't question an official or else you get fined. I think that's a bag of baloney. I think that you should be able to criticize the referees just as much as you criticize anybody else. If they mess up, I think it was like 2000, like a couple years ago, there was an umpire who messed up a perfect game, and
Yeah, that was
the moment that
Tigers and Indians.
yeah, the moment that happened, the umpire, he went over to the pitch and he was like, "Hey, I totally messed that up. Like, I'm really sorry. There was a blown call by me, and I'm really sorry." You will never see that from the referee in the NFL because everything they do is completely infallible. They cannot lose in this situation. And 99 times out of 100, they will always be protected.
All right, yeah, Josh, and what was your take on the situation with Roger Goodell's dressing the blown call in the Rams and Saints NFC Championship game?
I mean, I think you guys know how I feel about calls in the NFL. Calls go both ways, and I'm a staunch believer in. Yeah, that call didn't go the Saints' way, but I'm sure if you look back at big Saints games, there's plenty of calls that did go their way in crucial situations. Whether it been first downs, pass interference call, a holding call, there's so many calls that happen throughout every season to different teams. You're gonna get bad breaks here and there. I think that we are just in this moment right now where, because it was at the end of the game, kind of at the end of the game, people are all forgetting the Saints had the ball and they had a chance to win in overtime as well. It's not like that call necessarily lost them the game in that moment. And I think that call specifically is just, you can say, well, what if they scored? What if this? But they didn't. And it was one call out of a series of other plays that happened in that game where it could have gone the Saints' way. They could have done things differently. So I think it's an impossible thing to ask the referees to be able to be perfect because they're human. And it's really easy for us to watch a replay in high definition, slowed down 100 times over and over and over again. And by the fifth time, we're screaming at the TV like, what an idiot, ref. How could you not see that? But it's taken us 3 or 4 times to watch it. And we want these guys to make that call in a split second. He doesn't have time to review it and then come up with the call. He has to make that call on the field. Granted, that pass interference should have been pass interference. Yeah, pass interference calls get missed all the time. Holding calls get missed all the time. PI calls get missed all the time. Offensive pass interference calls get missed all the time. I mean, if you really slowed down the tape and watched every single play and every single guy on that play, guarantee you there's 4 or 5 penalties going on every single play. These refs are doing the best they can. If you really want to do it better, then the NFL needs to pay the referees union more, and they need to just get full-time referees that are always full-time, and that's a salary, and they aren't just these guys that you're picking up and throwing into this situation where you're like, okay, you're on the biggest stage in the biggest sports in America, don't make a mistake.
And you know what? Let's stick to this subject real quick.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Which is why I do agree with Josh that play that that was a bad call, but the Saints definitely could have won. But this is why they need to simplify the rule book, and B, get on the same level of what you're gonna be more consistent about what you call from team to team, so that touching a guy on the back and it isn't pass interference, and mugging a guy is pass interference, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Hank. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and stay on this type of topic. Josh had just finished up saying like a solution to this problem about penalties and everything. And he alluded to the fact that the pass interference was one of the most, judgmental reviewed calls, that and holding, I would say. So, guys, per Adam Schefter earlier this morning, the NFL may allow coaches to challenge judgment calls and receive a penalty if wrong. We haven't had any word of whatsoever what type of penalty would ensue after that. But this is from Adam Schefter. He's from ESPN. He's been pretty much 90% on, I would say, throughout this. So Roger Goodell had mentioned in his press conference that they were not going to look at judgment calls. And literally 2 hours, excuse me, after the press conference, Adam Schefter gets the sources. Now they're looking at a possible review of judgment calls. It's Adam Schefter per his sources. So that's what we're looking at right now. What is your take? Let's go back around the horn. Let's start with you, Hank.
I think that it's not that judgment. It's not that I believe that they should or shouldn't be able to, challenge judgment calls. What I do believe is that in the booth, I think the booth should be allowed to flags. I think the booth should be allowed to tell the referee, okay, we saw this happen, throw the flag. And in the same note as well, they should be able to talk. They should be able to confer with the booth to say, okay, that was a flag or that wasn't a flag. Like, for instance, when the Steelers player touched Alvin Kamara on the back and it went over their head, and that was called a pass interference. 15 or so seconds where the referee is asking the other referee why he threw the flag and who it was on. They should also be wired with the booth, and the booth should be like, no, that wasn't pass interference. Pick the damn flag up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So I think there should be more confirmation and more fail safes to make sure that bad flags don't get thrown.
It's if any of you are on our Facebook page right now, take a look at Hank's video he had posted regarding this same game. Actually, we're referring to. But go ahead, Ricky. I know you're very interested in outside of the NFC East, so I wanted to get your take on this.
I mean, can you say the question again one more time? I'm sorry.
We're just discussing the penalties. So, like a judgment call, for instance, when that happens, the NFL may allow the coaches to go ahead and throw a challenge flag to try to challenge judgment call, and if they lose, they may receive a penalty. And this is per Adam Schefter.
Honestly, I just think that's kind of stupid. I know you might that sounds like a weird statement to say, but like the fact of the matter is like if you're gonna penalize a coach to challenge a play, like or something because it goes negative, like see or what like you got the call or you got the challenge wrong, therefore we're gonna penalize you 5-10 yards. It's like no, that's stupid. To be honest with you, I would rather they keep it the same, or if they're going to do something around those lines, just make it to where if they challenge and they fail the challenge, they lose the challenge. Simple. I mean, like, I just find it stupid to see why would you penalize, and I get it, you want to deter a coach from challenging those types of judgment calls, but I just find that, it just, at this point in time, wouldn't make sense. I think if you want to, you would have to outline what is a judgment call, number one. And then after that, would you say, okay, are these judgment calls, are they worthy of giving penalties? Like, okay, if you get it wrong, you get a 15-yard penalty. It's like, no. Like, it's hard because I want to see what they formulate in the commissions during the,
Sean Payton's a part of that committee, right?
Huh?
Sean Payton's a part of the.
Oh my God! Yeah.
It's something. Sorry, folks. I know it's the committee. It's for the competition committee. Yes, that's what it is. He is a part of that, and they will be discussing this. And I think that's what they're going to be reviewing. Now, Josh, you had alluded to this being like kind of Pandora's box. Once this opens, you're going to have to look at holding. You're going to have to look at
a slippery slope that you don't want to go down. We just talked about simplifying the rule book. and now we're talking about adding some crazy coach's decision. It's human error is part of the game. It's been integrated into the game since the game's inception. Back in the day, when it was created, there's always been a human element to the referee calling and the play calling. It's just part of the game. I think, honestly, we're always going to have to live with bad calls and just suck it up and get over it. Your team's not always going to get the right call, but I guarantee you there's so many plays I can think of where we were really lucky to get a pass interference play right there. You know, I know all of us, no matter how much we love our teams, I've definitely been like, that wasn't pass interference.
But I'll take it.
But I'll take the flag.
Yeah.
Too much.
Yeah. Of course.
I 100% think that they need to keep that idea of challenging penalties off the table. The closest thing I would do is, Hank, like you said, within the last 2 minutes, maybe a booth could review it. But then you get into things like what happens in baseball, where the booth is in New York and you delay the game even longer when we already know how long the last 2 minutes of football game
or more like a booth confirmation instead of a review before the referee even announces it.
So
more like that instead of like, oh, the booth is going to look at, because the booth is always looking. The booth is looking at multiple camera angles and all that stuff.
you know what?
I'm coming at.
Say something real quick about like people complaining about game length and what's too long. I'm like, do you not like football? I mean, do you not like watching the sport? I could watch the sport for 8 hours if that was the case. I mean, it's not a big deal to me. I love sports. I mean, for the average viewer, for the fan that the NFL is obviously trying to pursue, they're looking for the attention span, so they're trying to grasp them. I get that, but I guess I'm stuck in the fact I don't want the game to change and make it faster. Let's figure it out the right way. Let's make the game fair. If it takes longer, I'm okay with that. But it's okay. That's just my take on that. But Ricky, actually, I'm sorry. I was going to go ahead and move on here. You guys have any more any thoughts on the penalties? I mean, I think the 2-minute drill. I mean, basically anything under 2 minutes, or something in the playoffs. If you want to challenge that call in the playoffs, maybe that makes more sense to me than doing it in a regular season game and prolonging that game. I get that, but in the playoffs, you have to make sure this is right. This is one game. This is it. So I feel like rules like that need to be applied because they have so much meaning. We need to maybe think about that more than just adding it as a rule based over the whole entire regular season. I think playoff rules can be a little bit different.
I don't like that.
You don't like that? Why not?
I don't like
Why? So
then you're changing the integrity
no,
of the
I'm
game.
not. 2 minutes.
Why don't you shorten the game too?
No. I'm
Why
just
don't
saying 2 minutes.
The only thing that makes sense is changing the overtime rule to where there can't be a tie. But literally, I don't like the idea of throwing in
review.
I don't like throwing in extra rules when you get to playoffs, because now you're making it even more convoluted, because then you're going to get teams playing in the 17th week trying to vie for the playoffs. And why didn't we get a review? It's an important week. It's the last game of the season. Our playoff chances come down to this. Why don't we get the review if it's basically a playoff game for us?
Well, yeah. Take it case by case, obviously.
But then you're going case. It's uniform. There's 32 teams. There's rules for all those teams. There's as many games as there are. There's a 16-game season. There's 17 weeks. You can't start handing out this week you're allowed to do this. This week you're allowed to do that. It's going to get too messy. And I think that
you have to be consistent.
Hank said it. We want to simplify the rules right now. We don't want to expand them and make them more, because that's the main thing us as fans are complaining about is all these rules, and receivers basically are untouched now. Defensive backs can't do anything. You're not allowed to hit quarterbacks. They're just adding all these rules, and we don't like it. Why would we want to add more rules to get us more upset?
Screw pass interference and screw hold. These referees don't even know. I mean, they can't even call a face mask. Like a guy's face can get turned all the way around, and they don't even call it. So in that situation, you either need the rules to be simplified, or you need more refs on the field.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Well, yeah, that makes more jobs too. Ricky, do you want to chime in real quick before we move on?
Oh no, I'm all good. I'm all good.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on here. There was a Sean McVay interview. He's obviously very intelligent and very. I guess he has a mind
He remembers what you ate for breakfast, DJ.
Exactly. He was quick, young, and and peppy. He knew what he was doing. And Bill Belichick was the exact opposite. He was I've been here before.
I mean, he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, I mean,
he was just acting the complete opposite.
No,
I feel like that's like psychological warfare right there.
It always is with Belichick. I listened to him, and he ended up like reminiscing about his time when he grew up in like outside of Cleveland, going to the Hall of Fame, and he literally went on a 5-minute tangent on the wing offense and how it was ran in his 8th grade year. I think my dad might be able to relate to that, but I honestly don't know what else he would be doing other than just either he's been here before or he would be playing into Sean McVay's head. I think he's already in Sean McVay's head.
I'm in my 6th Super Bowl, so
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going for set.
Get the fuck out.
But hey, Josh, I just want to get your take on that. I mean, obviously Belichick was just downplaying it, and McVay, being very peppy. The Rams haven't been to the playoff Super Bowl yet. This is their first time.
It's their 3rd time or 4th time.
Sorry, right. Let me just clarify. Yeah, so with McVay, this is their first time going, and the Patriots have a little bit more experience from the Super Bowl, and
guess what? The Patriots had tons of experience last year against the Eagles, and guess how many of those Eagles players had Super Bowl experience?
You're right.
Guess how many Super Bowls that head coach for the Eagles had? It doesn't matter. Any given Sunday, it's any given Sunday, and if the Rams come to play, then the Rams come to play. Do you remember when the Seahawks won and everyone counted them out against the Denver Broncos because they're like, look at what Peyton Manning's doing, unbeatable. You really think the Seahawks have a chance? Look at how many playoff wins Peyton Manning has. Look at how many times he's been to the playoffs. Look at Russell Wilson. He's young. Pete Carroll, he's new still. Like these guys can't do it. Yeah, they're good. They can't beat this team. They whooped on the Broncos. And it just means that any given Sunday, anybody can win. It really just comes down to who's going to be more prepared. And between Belichick and McVay, I couldn't really tell you because McVay seems like a guy who's pretty buttoned up on his P's and Q's, and he seems like he knows what he's doing when it comes to coaching. I mean, you wouldn't be on that position if you didn't. So I think this is going to be an exciting game, whether it's a defensive game or an offensive game. I think it's going to be really exciting to see these two coaches try to figure each other out on that football field.
Yeah, we got a great matchup, both head coaches and coordinator-wise, too. We have Wade Phillips running that defense with that front four.
Hi there, Jerry.
And then we have Sean McVay, obviously, and Bill Belichick. And the OC of the Patriots, who's been trying to get out, or basically has been trying to get out for the past few years. He's going to stay now. Josh McDaniels, he's actually going against he's going against Wade Phillips and Josh McDaniels. Sorry, those are the two that are going.
Wade Phillips does pretty well against Belichick as well, so he schemes up pretty well. So we'll see. I'm excited. I'm excited for the Wade Phillips defense as well.
We'll see what happens if that front four comes around. I don't see what else could. I mean, you have to stop Tom Brady. That's what it comes down to. So, guys, real quick, we were just talking about the Patriots and Bill Belichick. Can they continue their dynasty? I mean, this is a quick question, I guess, because they're going to be moving into how we feel this game's going to go. I know Josh just alluded to it, but Hank, why don't you go ahead and give us your take? I mean, do the Patriots continue their dynasty, or are the new and up-and-coming Rams going to dethrone them and give a little payback for what they did to the St. Louis Rams?
As somebody who, people were saying after last season, after the Patriots started out 1-2, right? And a lot of people were saying, oh, the Eagles, they destroyed they took down the Patriots dynasty. Now they're nothing. Look, I will never doubt the Patriots as long as Bill Belichick and Tom Brady are both together. You have to understand that Bill Belichick and Tom Brady were the boogeyman and the monster under our beds and in our closets as Philadelphia Eagles fans for years. Whenever this happens and, they don't play as well or they don't look as good, I'm not counting out the New England Patriots until they're both not a partnership, both Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. As long as they're a partnership, their dynasty will go as long as that. And that's what I truly believe. I mean, they've been great for a long time. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Ricky. So I know you're a big Patriots fan, as we see your Facebook page. So, the GOAT, Tom Brady, is he going to get a sixth? Is he going to be the most? I guess he would have the most Super Bowl rings. Yeah, six would be the most. You think he's going to get a sixth this year?
I will save that for later. I don't want to spoil my pick, which
Okay.
most of you probably know what my pick is.
In fact, if let's just say hypothetically, you chose they win this year. I mean, obviously, 6 Super Bowls is a lot. Is that going to be something? Yeah. Charles Haley who was from the Kansas City Chiefs, the defensive guy who had 5, Charles Haley, if I'm not mistaken, or he was on.
Yeah, he had
No,
5.
Well, Charles.
He has 5, yeah, but.
Okay, I mean that's going to be 6 now for him. Does that make him the best if he does get this? I mean,
he's already one of the best players in NFL history. I mean, like, if he gets a 6th one, and then that's no discredit. Like, I will tell you this: is he the most athletic or the most gifted athlete in the NFL? The NFL's ever seen? No. Like, if people try to go under that route, no. I will tell you this: he's the most, the most decorated athlete in NFL history. If even right now, like even if he wins even if he doesn't win this Super Bowl, he would still be, in my opinion, the most decorated athlete and one of the great, if not the, and I think if depending on how this game goes, he'll probably be the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, regardless of who. Because when you look at it, he has the stats, number 1. Number 2, he's been to 9 Super Bowls, which is more than any other franchise. I just look at it and I say, and I agree with Hank, listen, as long as Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are on the sideline together, the Patriots will rule over the AFC until someone either dethrones them, which is highly unlikely, or they just have a off year, which is highly improbable. So
I mean, they've been to 8 straight AFC championships.
I know, yeah. So
ridiculous when you hear that stat line, and it's very few times they lose in that AFC Championship game. But here's the kicker: okay, Tom Brady, about to be 42 years old. Is he going to play till he's 45? Josh, is that going to happen?
I mean, he could. Is he going to play as a starter? Is he going to be winning Super Bowls at 45? I don't know.
He's been to 3 straight.
Could he do it? I mean, I'm sure he could with his avocado ice cream and.
The thing is that Tom Brady's diet and the way that he composes himself and the way that he eats and the way that he trains, he's what, 41, 42 years old. He looks like he's 30. He looks like he's younger than me. But he looks like he's younger than all of us. He looks like he's younger than Ricky, and Ricky is like 20 years younger than him.
He also looks almost exactly the same as he did when he came into the draft, which means that it's not like he looks like a shredded 30-year-old. He just kind of
he's gangloid.
He has like permanent just dad-ish bod. Not full dad bod, but like dad-ish bod. Like he doesn't have a six-pack. He doesn't have a giant chest. He doesn't have, super big arms, but
he gets to date Giselle Bundchen, and
But what helps Tom Brady is, yeah, his physical attributes in the sense that he's been able to keep his body healthy, his longevity, but it's his mind being paired with Bill Belichick. Name another tandem of quarterback and head coach who have been together this long. Yeah, you have new offensive coordinators. Yeah, you have new defensive coordinators here and there. But the fact that the continuity of that relationship of Belichick and Brady, I think that's what's really propelled the Patriots, Tom Brady, and Bill Belichick kind of into the stratosphere of what we talk about when we talk about accolades in the modern NFL, is because it's the consistency. It's that even when Tom Brady was great, they didn't really overpay him, just because we have to pay him and we're going to pay him well, but why ruin our team salary cap for a guy and Tom Brady knew he wanted to stay there. Why would he ever leave Belichick? Like, that's the thing. Belichick would never leave Brady. Brady would never leave Belichick. That's why they shipped off Jimmy Garoppolo.
The opposite of that is some Seth Sham bullshit.
Some who?
Oh, Brady,
got-
Belichick hates Brady and he wanted to get rid of him by all means. Oh.
Listen,
Yeah.
Seth,
And the whole media ran with it, and it was a waste of time. It was just a talking point for First Take and Undisputed. It was like the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
oh well, yeah, we've heard about dumb takes from First Take, right?
Yeah.
Actually, we had one just recently, right, Hank? What was that?
Yeah.
What just
So
actually?
I'm not coming out and saying that I am a huge fan of Max Kellerman and Stephen A. Smith and all of those guys and what's her name, Molly. She's married to Jalen
Karam Rose, I guess now. So
Yeah. So what happened was, basically Max Keller. I don't actually know the exact
I know exactly what kind of happened.
context,
Yeah.
but he said something like, "Oh, it seems like Derek Carr gave up on the season," and you know what I'm gonna say about every single Carr who's ever existed. The fact of the matter is that there's no quit in David Carr or Derek Carr. There's no quit in them at all. Sure, they played poorly, and that's not disputed. Derek Carr like trash the last 2 seasons, whether it's been an injury or not. But basically, what happened was, based off of his play, Max Kellerman was questioning his intensity and his leadership and his drive to do well. And basically, what Derek Carr did was he was like, yeah, it really sucks that these clowns are speaking about me on First Take, and they could never play football. They have no idea what I go through, and my kids in 10 years will see these videos, and it'll be really pathetic. So I challenge you to a fight in the ring. And I'm like, look, Derek, you shouldn't waste your time on these two stooges on First Take. First of all, Stephen A. Smith doesn't even, half the time, he doesn't even know who's playing on the field. I mean, he said that Kareem Hunt was playing for the Saints. He also said that Hunter Henry was playing in a game between the Chiefs and the Chargers this season when he was out on injured reserve and had been since the beginning of the season. And Max Keller, I mean, you look at some of his takes, it's just like wrong. Like he puts Skip Baseless to shame. So it's just one of the things where I was like, wouldn't your kids be more upset to see that their dad was threatening some idiot on TV to a fight?
See, and I want to.
It's just like both ways. Both people end up looking poorly. Hey, Derek, why don't you play better? And then the talking heads will be praising you, and they won't be talking trash about you.
Yeah, I want to just add this, and then we'll move on. Not too much, but my thing was this: like, I didn't have a problem with him calling him out. The problem I had was when he brought up the whole octagon fight, ring, whatever. That's when I was like, okay, man, really? Because, like, as a person, like me personally, I would blow him off. But if it came to a point where it was like unnecessary, like, okay, like, really, like, you keep criticizing me, and it's like I'm trying to do it. Like, if Derek Carr, let's say he was playing like, and he's playing better, and they're still criticizing his motivation, by all means. But listen, man, I did this. We are doing this as a team, and you want to continue to talk bad about my team, by all means. You're the media. You have to talk about something. But come on, man, don't do, like, that's what I would have said. I wouldn't have gone to the point where I would challenge them to a fight. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, thank God he called him out. But the thing is it's just like putting gasoline on a fire. Like, it's not going to make it any better.
I know that Derek Carr is a Christian man. What would Jesus do? He would definitely challenge somebody to a
He just
out of
interest. No, but yeah, that's it for me.
I just got one thing to drop off on this. Basically, I know what they're saying. When Stephen A. Smith came back and said, all he says, like, oh, he's 27th in QBR. You know what? I don't want to hear it. He's been through 3 offensive coordinators in the past 2 years. He's had John Gruden come in and basically just lay waste to a bunch of people. So I can't blame the whole season on Derek Carr, and that's what basically Stephen A. Smith is
Oh,
doing.
definitely not.
Oh, absolutely no.
No,
Yeah.
no, basically. But what I'm saying is, but you look at his stats here in the last. Let's see. We're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The last 6 games. We're not going to count the Kansas City game because that was just a disaster. But the 6 prior games to that, he had the highest QBR percentage. He had, let's see, he also had about eight touchdown passes to 0 interceptions. So with the QBR in those past 6 games of almost 98. So he has now figured something out, and he's coming off a good stretch. So I understand why he would call them out like that. Because
But
I
DJ,
kind
but
of
DJ, QBR BS stat anyway. No, like nobody cares about Nobody should care about QBR.
that's what they're using.
I,
And
I know, but they shouldn't.
okay, whatever, Hank. I understand that, but they're using that as a base of how they judge a quarterback, and that's what makes them even more just unreasonable to listen to. But some people do.
Quarterback with 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions can have the same QBR as a quarterback with 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, which makes absolutely no sense. So
Yeah.
I don't take QBR with any grain of anything.
Cool. So, guys, we're gonna go ahead and move on before we get to the picks. Real quick, we have a little thing called awards, I guess, for the 2018 season.
Mhm.
Ricky, did you want to go ahead and take this?
Yeah,
over?
sure. Yeah, absolutely. So basically, this is what we're gonna do. It's, obviously we have the NFL awards on Saturday before the Super Bowl. So basically, during this award show, they're gonna announce, like, obviously MVP, Coach of the Year, Offensive Defense Player of the Year, Rookies of the Year. All of it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, okay, who is your, for example, Offensive Rookie of the Year? You give me a name and why. You don't have to be the most lucrative of an answer. Just be like, oh, I think it's this because of this, this, and this. It could be anybody. I'll start. So, I guess the first thing we'll start with is obviously Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, I know a lot of people would want to say, oh, Saquon Barkley because, running back and look what he did, And I will, yeah, as a Penn State fan, well, I'm happy for him, but I'm not happy because he's a Giant. But I got to give it to Baker Mayfield because the fact of the matter is he broke the touchdown record for most touchdowns by a rookie, if I'm correct. He led the Browns. Wait, think about this. He led the Browns to 7-8-1 when they started off pretty poorly. Okay, and it's just like, not only that thing. I personally feel that Baker Mayfield was the MVP for that team. No disrespect to anyone else on that team. It's just that obviously you could be like, well, when Hugh Jackson was fired, the team played a lot better. Yeah, that is true, but you got to think about it. Baker Mayfield was playing well as well. Yeah, he had some mistakes and some bad games here and there, but the fact of the matter is that Baker Mayfield, I think he deserves Offensive Rookie of the Year. I understand that Saquon, he did play, the whole season, and he had a great campaign. I will not deny that, but I'm sorry, but I think Baker Mayfield's the Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Hugh Jackson was the least, the
Okay.
least player of the year.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn it over to Hank. So Hank, who do you think is who would be your Offensive Rookie of the Year?
I'm gonna tell you who I think it should be, and then I'll tell you who it will be. Okay.
Go.
So back in the 2016 season, when Ezekiel Elliott was almost breaking records when it came to being a running back, he also won the rushing title that year. Who was the Offensive Rookie of the Year that year?
Dak Prescott.
It is Dak Prescott. So I think that it should be Saquon Barkley just because of what he was able to do on the field and how he was. I mean, this is a guy who was almost untouchable at certain points in time. This was a guy who, in certain cases, was almost impossible to tackle. This guy had versatility and the size to put up some really great numbers. But based off of the fact that this is a quarterback-driven league, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna say it's going to be Baker Mayfield just because it is a quarterback-driven league. Nothing against Baker Mayfield. He definitely was the MVP of the Cleveland Browns on offense. He was able to do a lot of special things. He also broke a few records, or one in particular. I think he threw the most touchdowns in consecutive game, or he threw a touchdown in consecutive games, and he scored the most touchdowns in a season, and he missed like 2 games or 3 games. So I'm going to say that it's Baker Mayfield, but I think it should be Saquon Barkley.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to.
So my answer is Baker Mayfield.
Okay, so we'll move on to Josh. Josh, who do you think's your or who do you think should win Offensive Rookie of the Year, in your opinion?
I'm gonna switch it up because you guys already took Saquon and you took Baker Mayfield. So I'm gonna hit you guys with somebody who no one expected, wasn't even drafted. I'm gonna give you guys Philip Lindsay.
That's a good one.
Broncos. Philip Lindsay this year had much less. He had way less attempts than Saquon Barkley did. Saquon had 261 rushing attempts, whereas Philip Lindsay had 192. They were only 300 rushing yards apart, guys. And we are talking a lot more touches here. We're talking about 60 more touches for Saquon, and he only had 300 more yards. I think that Philip Lindsay, especially playing for the team that he played for, the Broncos really did not have much going for them at all this year. It's almost like they couldn't figure out who they wanted to start. Philip Lindsay didn't have one game where he had over 20 touches, and he still averaged 5.4 yards per carry. Usually you get numbers like that when you have multiple touches, so you can break that one big one. Philip Lindsay was able to average 5.4 yards a carry with a 19 attempt game as his highest attempts in the entire season. I'm going to roll the dice, and I'm going to go with Philip Lindsay. I know he's not going to get picked. I know no one out there is actually going to pick Philip Lindsay as the Rookie of the Year, but I don't think he's gotten nearly enough recognition just because Baker came on and broke the record and Saquon was the number 1 overall pick because he was that good. So I'm going with Philip Lindsay.
I mean, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, a completely unexpected player, and he got a Pro Bowl nod as well, so definitely a good one. And then DJ, who are you going with?
I got to go with Baker. Sorry, period in the story. He led my Browns to more wins in the past 3 years than any quarterback has done in the past 3 years, I think. And also, the fact he was one big stat that he was number 1 in that a lot of people are not talking about is when he throws the ball within the closeness to the distance. I forgot what stat it is exactly, but it's like within how close the ball is to the defender as the receiver catches it, if that makes any sense. But he was number 1 in that statistic, and that's throughout the whole entire league. That's better than Tom Brady, Drew Brees, everybody. This guy takes chances down the field. He leads the team, something that I know Saquon could do. But when you have a guy like Baker Mayfield take control of the Browns, which has been just a shameful franchise for so long, and do what he did, there's no way you can't give it to him. He turned the Browns around. Period in the story. And he also caught a touchdown, just like Nick Foles did for you guys. I mean, he's very versatile, and I know that Saquon Barkley is too. And me and Hank said this at the beginning of this year, right when the draft happened. These are going to be the 2 guys battling out for the Rookie of the Year, and we had a big argument that you guys should have drafted Saquon. Well, obviously, you shouldn't have drafted Saquon because Saquon wouldn't have saved the Browns. Baker Mayfield saved the Browns.
And I was also the one who said that you should start Baker Mayfield as soon as possible.
Yeah, you did say that. I will give you that, Hank. All right. But, yeah, that's my pick, Rick.
Okay, so we're going to do Defensive Rookie of the Year now. Now, for me personally, I know a lot of people will probably get mad at me for this. Now, obviously, I would say Leighton Vander Esch, considering the situation in which the Cowboys were in defensive-wise. I mean, there are 3 candidates in my mind. There's Leighton Vander Esch, Derwin James, and Darius Leonard. And to me, Out of all of them, and this is probably one of the toughest ones, I gotta go with Darius Leonard. Look, he led the NFL in tackles. It's a shame he didn't get selected to the Pro Bowl. I know he did get the first all team or whatever, all pro team. But still, man, like, come on. But look, the way that he helped that Colts defense, yes, I understand that the Colts are still trying to acquire talent on the defensive end, but that man is special. Okay, he did exactly what he had to do. Uh, it's just like every time I would see him, it's just like, wow, he's making all these plays. He's fantastic. He definitely is helping that Colts defense find itself. And it's like a kind of a toss-up between him and Van Der Esch because they're both in similar situations. I mean, you can make the argument for either one. Honestly, you can make the argument for Derwin James as well. I'm going to go with Darius Leonard. He led the NFL in tackles, obviously considering where the Colts were and now like how far they got with that defense. Yeah, I got to give the nod to him. So I'm going to go to Hank. Hank, who's your defensive player of the year? I mean, defensive rookie of the year, excuse me.
I am gonna say Leighton Van Der Esch or Esch just because of what he was able to do on the field for the Dallas Cowboys, coming in for Sean Lee, and many people thought that when that happened that the situation was over. I personally knew that the Dallas Cowboys to move on from Sean Lee, and who's the perfect guy to go in and take the reins away. I'm gonna say that it's Leighton Van Der Esch.
Okay, Josh.
Defensive rookie of the year is a little bit harder for me to say because it's as a defensive player. I mean, Derwin James made some big plays. They were able to play him all over the field, but I really liked what Roquan Smith was able to do for the Bears. I really wanted the Raiders to get him. I think that Roquan has all the talent in the world, and he just looks like a natural at middle linebacker. Almost like when CJ Mosley was coming out into the NFL, like when Luke Kuechly, he just reminds me of that rangy guy who can get sideline to sideline and make plays. I don't think he got as much credit as he deserved for how good of a rookie season he had because he was playing on the same team with Khalil Mack, and Mack was getting all the credit on that team.
He's getting all double teams too.
He was getting all the double teams too, but I really like Roquan Smith, not just because of what he can do as a linebacker when it comes to stopping the run, but also what he can do in coverage, like I said, with his speed, his sideline to sideline, and his tackling ability. I'm going to go with Roquan Smith as Rookie of the Year.
Okay, and finally, DJ, Defensive Rookie of the Year, and why?
Yeah, guys, it's been Tremaine Edmonds and Derwin James. Derwin James has been up there since day one. That's the reason why he was drafted that high. I'm gonna have to go with Derwin James because they did make it to an AFC champion. And so I just believe that I know that since they lost to the Patriots, I know it was tough. It's a West Coast team coming in early game on the East Coast. Never a good game for the West Coast team in that circumstances. So, in all honesty, I have to go with Derwin James. He was drafted high, and he really showed his draft worth. He was draft worthy where his stock was at. So
I will tell you, Derwin James did fall in the draft, and I was actually shocked because I thought he was going to go top 10, and a lot of those teams that passed up on him, probably being stupid, but thinking stupid right now. But okay, so next, this isn't an official award. This is more of our own personal award. Now, it's two. Your surprise team of 2018-19 and your most disappointing team of 2018-19. Now, obviously, we might have a couple. I
think we did this last week.
I don't recall, but if we did do it last week, then okay. I guess we'll
Well, I mean, what? It's the most by surprise team?
We did this last week.
Oh, did we? Okay, my bad.
Yeah, we did do this.
My apologies. I had wrote that on my notes. But
Okay.
moving on. Let's move on to Coach of the Year.
You will never know our surprise team.
Yeah. Coach of the Year. Now, there are a lot of candidates this year. Obviously, you can't say, like, oh, this is, like, people might want to say Sean McVay, blah, blah, blah. Okay. My Coach of the Year candidate, it's hard because there's a couple I could say. I'm going with Matt Nagy. Listen, man, I know a lot of people will say, oh, Khalil Mack he was the whole reason. No, Matt Nagy had to ensure that the ship stayed afloat. Yes, I understand they did lose in the playoffs, but guess what? Coach of the Year is not about what you do in the playoffs. It's what you do in the regular season, okay? I thought that the Chicago Bears were going to make the playoffs. I thought they were going to surprise people, but I did not expect them to go 12-4, beat a team like the Rams. Of course, it sucks that they lost in their playoff game, but hey, you know what? You're going up against the defending Super Bowl champions, but it happens. Listen, Matt Nagy turned around Chicago. He's definitely made Mitchell Trubisky a lot better. I know he has more room to grow, but I think that he deserves the nod. I mean, he completely turned Chicago around, and I think that Chicago will be a pretty good team for some time. I'm not sure about next year, but they'll be around. Let's go to Hank.
I do agree that I think that Nagy has a very good chance of being Coach of the Year, but I'm gonna turn it to Anthony Lynn, the head coach of the LA Chargers. Excuse me, taking a team that was at the bottom of the barrel under Mike McCoy, which we know is probably like the worst coach in NFL history at being a coach. So he took the Chargers to 9-7 last year, and then I think the Chargers ended up going 11-5 or 4 this year. So a big push there in 2 years, and ended up taking the Chargers to the playoffs for the first time since the 2013 NFL season. So I'd give it to Anthony Lynn.
Okay, Josh.
You kind of took. I was gonna go with Nagy when we were talking about this. I love coaches who come from that Andy Reid coaching tree. He does a really good job. But I think I'm gonna have to stick with that. I'm gonna have to go with Nagy because he just. I mean, were we even talking about the Bears being relevant? I think weren't we all laughing about the Mitch Trubisky pick and how my God, it's just gonna flame out. They're not gonna do anything. And hey, I don't think Mitch Trubisky's that good of a quarterback, but what Nagy was able to do there, I think is good. Their defense is built for the future. And the good thing about Mitch Trubisky is he's a young quarterback. So in a few years, if it doesn't work out, get rid of him. But I like Matt Nagy. I like him for Coach of the Year.
Okay, DJ.
Okay. It's got to be between two people in my eyes. I know you guys both picked Nagy. I get that. First one's Frank Reich for me. That was a team that was not even thinking they're going to make the playoffs at the beginning of the year. And with Andrew Luck coming back, Frank Reich was a backup quarterback for Jim Kelly on the Buffalo Bills and actually helped out to go back to the Super Bowl for one of the consecutive Super Bowls there.
He was also a backup quarterback for the Maryland Terrans too in a comeback game in like the late 80s.
Yeah. So Frank did a great job, I think, with this team. He really rallied the troops. He had a lot of young players on this team, obviously with the young linebacker that actually springboarded, who I thought was going to get the Defensive Rookie of the Year, and he kind of fell off. But I just see Frank Reich, for me, being that what position he was in the beginning of the year and what he finished with. I thought that was the way to go. The second one for me, I'm on the fence of, and I can't really choose, and I know it's not what you're supposed to do, but Sean Payton, I think, was a heck of a coach this year too. I know he had a really.
I mean, there was a heck of good coaches this year. I mean, you could say Andy Reid is up there with Coach of the Reid.
I mean, we just talked about the trees.
I mean, we just talked about a lot of these guys come from the Andy Reid tree.
Exactly.
I just think that this year was really, really tough. I think your pick with the Colts coach was good. Also, what the Texans were able to do this year. Bill O'Brien coming back. What were they? 0-5 or 0-4 to start the year, and they flipped around. And they won like 10 straight.
I think they were 0-3. I think
0-3. Yeah.
But
no,
they were
4.
No, they were like. But they were.
No,
like,
they were 0-3. The Texans. Yeah.
1-5.
I think
0-5. Yeah.
Or something like that to start the season.
They were 0-3, and then I think they went 8. I think they were 8 or 9-3 or 9-4.
Well, they went on an 8-game win streak.
They won like 9 games in a row.
Who, the Texans?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Texans went on a 9-game winning streak. Yeah.
Yeah, they won 1-5 and 11, and then finished 11-5, right? 10-game win streak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
I mean, So that
They only lost to the Colts in Indianapolis and the Eagles in Philadelphia.
of course the Eagles. Was Foles playing that game?
Yes.
The Philadelphia Eagles have never lost to any Houston team. Oilers, Texans never lost to either of them.
That's the hashtag NFL encyclopedia.
But
And they also have never lost to the Jets.
no one cares about the Jets. Anyways, so those are your 2 picks, TJ.
That was my 2 picks, yes.
Okay, so next one we're gonna do now. I have a pet peeve with this. Okay, it's gonna be both your offensive and defensive player of the year. That's not my pet peeve. The pet peeve I have is that typically whoever wins offensive player of the year tends to win the MVP, and it's stupid. Okay, me personally, if I had to do it in
and they oftentimes don't win the Super Bowl.
Exactly, but luckily, So my offensive player of the year. Okay, I think it's gonna be Patrick Mahomes because of his season, but in all honesty, I think it should be Todd Gurley, based on what he did this season, and especially like how, and you could be like, well, he got hurt at the end of the season, so blah 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 blah. But listen, Todd Gurley had one heck of a season. I mean, he was serving up touchdown. What he had like 16 or something, like a lot. Like he had double digit touchdowns, right? I forget, but and I apologize about that. But I would definitely go with Todd Gurley as that would be my personal choice, but I think it's going to be Patrick Mahomes. Defensive player of the year, Khalil Mack. We all know what's going to happen. I just, especially with what he did on defense for the Bears, blah, you know what I mean? I mean, I don't have much more to say. It's kind of self-explanatory. I hate to kind of leave you guys hanging without an explanation. But yeah, so those are my picks. Hank, defensive, offensive player of the year. Who are you going with?
I'm gonna go with Patrick Mahomes. Recently, they're always having quarterbacks be most valuable players. Patrick Mahomes had 50 passing touchdowns. I don't know how many rushing touchdowns he had, but he had 50 passing touchdowns. Sure, he had around 5,000 yards passing. He won 12 games. I'm picking Patrick Mahomes in that position. I'm not trying to be biased in any way. It's usually the quarterback that wins it. And then for defensive or defensive player of the year, I think it's going to be Aaron Donald.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean 20 sack season.
Just because he's a freaking beast, and the only team who actually stopped him was the Eagles.
All right, Hank. You don't need to brag, okay? But yeah, those are good choices. Josh, who you going with?
For my offensive player of the year, I'm going to switch it up, guys, because Patrick Mahomes is going to be my vote for MVP. I think he's kind of unanimously MVP, but Ricky, I agree with you. I don't like that the offensive player of the year is automatically the MVP. I think the player that impressed me the most offensively was Saquon Barkley, because he not only ran the ball, but he also had 91 receiving yards this year and over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. So Saquon Barkley is going to be my offensive player of the year as a rookie, and he played on a bad team that didn't have an offensive line, and we all know how bad Eli Manning looks. He didn't have Odell Beckham to be that number one wide receiver on the outside for a lot of the year. I'm going with Saquon Barkley as the offensive player of the year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and your defensive player of the year?
Defensive player of the year, it's God, 6 on one, half dozen on the other. It's Khalil and Aaron Donald. I mean, both of those guys are the best defensive guys in the NFL, in my opinion. They play different positions, but they both disrupt quarterbacks. If I had to lean one way, I think I'm going to lean a little bit more towards Khalil Mack, just because he plays on the outside. He can line up an outside linebacker as well as defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
He can go in on the inside. He's the only player to ever be a Pro Bowler in 2 positions in the same year. I'm going to lean towards Khalil Mack because a lot of things Khalil Mack does is he wrecks games. He eats up double teams. I know Aaron Donald does that as well, but I think Khalil Mack being a pure pass rusher as well as the other points of his game give him a slight edge in the defensive player of the year.
Okay. All right, DJ. Here you
Yeah,
going?
you know, it kind of took the words right out of my mouth there. I got to go. I'm just gonna go ahead and say Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack, he is a force of nature. Period in story. And exactly what Josh said. He wrecks offensive lines. He wrecks plays. It's just what happens.
There was a play I saw this year where he literally had one arm extended and pushed back a 360-pound offensive lineman with one arm. That is a grown man
Yes.
that I do not
And
want to
guess
get
what?
in his hand.
He is the holder of the only stat line ever to say back sack. He sacks somebody with their back, with his back.
He blew up a lineman and then backed up into the quarterback for a
That's
sack.
insane.
So-
That's yeah.
For everybody out there on Pro Football Focus. Yeah, and my offensive player of the year goes to Patrick Mahomes. And I am not of the same thinking of you guys with the offensive player always winning. I don't think it's going to be that way this year. I think. Well, we'll get into that, Josh. I'm not giving my answer. That's waiting for. We got to keep this thing going. But yeah, that's my offensive player of the year. Patrick Mahomes gets a touchdown.
Okay. I got you. Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. Now, we have two more awards, or actually, well, yeah, two more awards. I don't want to go on for too long, and then we'll get into the game. So, we'll save MVP for last because it's the best one. This one is the biggest fail of 2018-19. Now, this could be anything, okay? I know it's a very broad award, and it's not an award that exists. I'll go first to provide an example. Biggest fail of 2018-2019, 110% the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know I'm calling out the whole team. This is why they are my fail of 2018-2019. They had, and I talked about this before, why they were one of my most disappointing teams. Had arguably one of the best offenses of football, had two 1,000-yard receivers. Their defense were tied for, I believe, for most sacks in the league. So their defense was good. Their offense was good. 7-2-1. They were literally, like, people were talking about them possibly, hosting a playoff game possibly against New England, which they had beaten. And obviously the whole tone of the season was different at that point in time. But to go from 7-2-1 to only winning two out of the next two out of your next 6 games. That's embarrassing, man. I mean, that's humiliating. To go 2-4 down the stretch with that talented of a roster. Yeah, the 2018-2019 Pittsburgh Steelers are my fail of this season. So, Hank, who is your fail? It could be a team, player, whatever, of this year, and why?
I would say that the biggest fail of the year was the Cleveland Browns not firing Hugh Jackson last season. The reason why I say this is because we've only seen Hugh Jackson have 3.5 wins with the Cleveland Browns. The moment he was fired, there was just an absolute change in the whole makeup of the team. I just personally believe that based off of what I've seen, he should have been fired way before that. And to even put more into perspective, the hiring of Todd Haley to be their offensive coordinator was also a pretty big fail because they ended up firing him anyway.
I got you.
And that's it.
Okay. Josh, your biggest fail of 2018-2019 and why?
My biggest fail of the 2018-2019 season, he didn't even make it the entire season, guys. I'm talking about Mike McCoy from the Cardinals.
I knew you were gonna say that. I was thinking about that one too, but then I was like, I don't want to steal Josh's thunder.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you. I'm glad we were on the same wavelength there. But I mean, guys, how many times have we talked about it? You have David Johnson, who, yeah, granted, he was on IR last year, but for a wrist injury, you would think he would come back healthy, ready to go. The year before, he was the #1 fantasy running back. I think he had the most scrimmage yards that year as well, more than Todd Gurley. We're talking about 3 years ago. And you would have expected him to come back and play well, but Mike McCoy was like, we're just going to run right up the middle. I think in the first quarter of the season, through 4 games, no one had run the ball up the middle more than Mike McCoy, and no one had less yards per carry up the middle than Mike McCoy, the offensive coordinator for the Cardinals.
Wow.
It's also the fact that they signed Sam Bradford to like a 1-year, $20 million contract, and he only played for like 4 games.
That
And
is
then
true.
And then you throw your rookie quarterback in there too early. They put him in a really weird situation. I remember they tried to like put him in at like the end of a game, but with like 3 minutes left, and it was a game that they were like actually kind of in. Like they were only like I think a score or maybe
That was the Bears game, right?
I can't remember.
I
I can't remember off
think-
the top of my head, but I just remember thinking to myself, why would you put your rookie in this situation as his first time in game time in an NFL game? And just
Exactly.
Mike McCoy definitely has to be my biggest fail of the year. They couldn't have run him out of town fast enough. And as I've said before, the only reason anyone thinks Mike McCoy is good is because of Phillip Rivers and Peyton Manning.
Okay. And finally, DJ, your biggest fail of this year and why?
You know, you stole my thunder and Josh's thunder for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to have to go with Robert Humphries in our fantasy football league. He won the past 2 years in my... He had won his first 6 games in this year's contest, and now he had continuously lost every game from there, and in 6 and 7, failing to make the playoffs, just like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Biggest fail of 2018. Robert Humphries coming off of a 6-game win streak to lose 7 in a row. But I have an honorable mention as well.
That
An
being
honorable mention has to be the safety for the Colts who retired early into 4 games.
You mean the Bills?
the
The
Bills.
Bills. I'm sorry. The Bills. I'm so sorry. Yes.
It wasn't a safety. It was Vontae Davis.
He was a cornerback. But I get it, DJ.
I think no.
Go on. Go on.
Yes, that's my honorable mention there. But yeah.
Okay. Finally, we'll get to MVP, and then we'll wrap it up with the game, who we think's gonna win, and just talk about it in general. MVP, Patrick Mahomes. That's all. I don't have any much more to say. It's gonna be Patrick Mahomes. I wouldn't be shocked if Drew Brees got it, but it's Patrick Mahomes. Hank.
It's going to be Patrick Mahomes because Patrick Mahomes had the best season over a consistent period of time. You could see Drew Brees started to peter out by around week 12 or 13.
Okay.
He was not himself.
I got you. Josh.
Josh, he's actually going with Patrick Mahomes as well. So I'll just go. Drew Brees.
I'm curious why you say Drew Brees, and I'm not questioning it because I wouldn't be shocked if he won it. But what's your case?
My case for Drew Brees, I know he tapered off at the end there, but he finished with the best record in the NFC, which was a tougher division, a tougher conference, I thought, this year. And being that it is a regular season award, it's always tough when they do this because they always say it's for the regular season, but then we get to watch the whole entire freaking season, playoffs, and then we have to decide whether or not we're going to implement what we saw in the playoffs is what we want to put in the MVP conversation. I'm going with Drew Brees because of his record, because of what he did in a tougher conference. Patrick Mahomes is going to have a lot of time to win MVPs. Let's go ahead and give it to Drew Brees. I feel like he had pretty much the same season. I know that the touchdown record is 50 touchdowns is great, but MVP, you have to be able to lead a team, which Mahomes did, but I think Drew Brees did a little bit better. That's just my opinion.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, guys, we gotta get because of how much time we're at, we're gonna go ahead and get straight into the game now. This is probably gonna be the most because of picks. I believe we all picked the same teams, so it's not like it mattered in China. So we all went 0-2.
No, I picked the Patriots.
Did you? Okay, I gotta double check. Yeah, I'm sorry. I lost my notebook.
I played reverse psychology. I picked the Patriots.
Okay, but either way, and I gotta double check this. So please take what I say with a grain of salt. I apologize for being unprepared because I did lose my notebook, so I gotta find it. But I do recall me and Josh are tied. So whoever wins this game, whoever gets it right, more or less, is gonna most likely win the playoff pool or whatever. So let's start talking about this game. DJ, did you want to take it away? Anything you want to talk about this game?
It away right now. You know what? I missed the MVP conversation, so
Go
I
ahead.
will take it away because I already said MVP was Patrick Mahomes. I think when you throw 50 touchdowns your first season as a starter, you deserve MVP. Not to take anything away from Drew Brees, but just I think Patrick Mahomes was more consistent for the entire year. There were games in where Drew Brees kind of fell off here and there, and that Saints team all around was good. The receivers, the running back. I'm not taking anything away from the receivers and running backs for the Chiefs, but Patrick Mahomes threw 50 touchdowns. So I'm going with him, and let's keep on rolling with this Super Bowl pick. I'm going to have to go with the Rams here, guys. I think comes full circle. The birth of Tom Brady came against the Rams in that Super Bowl 17 years ago, and it was against Kurt Warner, the greatest show on turf. And I think that this is where I don't think Tom Brady's going to hang it up, but I think this is where a new era may begin with Sean McVay. Maybe not necessarily Jared Goff, but definitely Sean McVay. I think he can do. I think Sean McVay is one of those coaches who can make any quarterback great, and he can because of his game planning. I'm gonna go with the Rams in this game, upsetting the Patriots, and it's gonna be a good game. It's going to be 38-35.
Okay, and for a tiebreaker pick, who is your Super Bowl MVP?
Aaron Donald.
Whoa.
Wow, that's a good one. Give me 1 second, I gotta write this down. Hank, who are you going with and why? And your Super Bowl MVP and score.
For the podcast right now, I'm going to opt out of this because
Okay.
besides last year, I thing where I post a bunch of predictions and I want to reveal that at that time. So
Okay.
I'm gonna opt out of this one.
Not a
Whoa,
problem.
whoa. What'd you say again? Say that one more time, so
I said it's a tradition for me besides last year because obviously it was my team. I usually do a thing where I predict it on my Facebook page and then I give a bunch of predictions that I have for the game. So I'm just gonna keep that going. I'm gonna opt out of saying what I think about the game right now, and then giving the predictions there.
As long as I get it before Sunday.
It'll still be down.
Give me one over under right now. Over under national anthem being longer than 2 minutes.
Over.
I'm gonna
going
say
over.
it's gonna be over 2 minutes.
I'm going over.
I'm writing that down.
Isn't Pink singing the national anthem this year?
I don't know, but what color Gatorade bath is going on the winner? Huh? How was that?
Yellow.
Yellow.
Blue. I got blue.
No, they don't use blue on the sideline.
Okay. We're having a bunch of tiebreakers in this thing. So let's do that. We'll have some fun with this here. So everyone's going with the over for the national anthem being 2 minutes or longer.
Yep.
Okay, give me 1 second. I gotta write this down because we're gonna have some fun.
Well, first off, let me get my pick, because obviously Hank doesn't want to do his. That's fine. Patriots are going to win this game, guys. Tom Brady's getting his 6th Super Bowl. It's tough to bet against him. I know he lost last year, but that's because Nick Foles just had, just a little bit more magic than Tom Brady. And that was a special year. I watched that. When I watched that game, I just couldn't understand what was happening. I knew what was going to happen eventually, but I don't think Hank was ready for it, but definitely was. But this is not going to be the same as last year. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be 27-31 in the favor of the Patriots.
27-31, so 31-27 you mean?
Yeah.
And then who's your Super Bowl MVP? Tom Brady?
Tom Brady gets the Super Bowl MVP.
Okay. And then, Josh, what color Gatorade do you think is going to get dumped on the winning coach's head?
I'm going to have to go with red.
Oh.
Okay, so 2 reds and 2 yellows, okay.
What about that purple? The purple one's been done before, hasn't it?
Yeah, as a
What's the purple one called? Arctic Freeze?
Cascade Crash.
Cascade Crash.
Don't even make that flavor.
I thought it was like Glacier or something.
I don't know. Anyway,
That's light blue. Don't you
Yes.
dare. Don't you.
That's
You.
one.
give me 1 second, guys.
back. Don't you dare disrespect my Glacier Freeze and mix it up with Cascade Crash. How dare you? I'm actually going to say it's Riptide Rush.
Oh,
Riptide Rush.
Oh my god, you guys.
After studying Gatorade flavors.
get your free.
It's gonna be a rainbow color.
Actually, this is mixed with something. Not good.
Anyways, I'll go all right, let me go and then we'll finish this thing up. I'm going with the Patriots, guys. Listen, I cannot go against them at this point in time unless Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are no longer on the Patriots sideline. I'm going with the score of 28-24. This is how I think it's going to happen. My bold prediction is going to be Rams have it at like the 40-yard line and Goff tries to throw it into the end zone and he's picked off or something like that. That's my biggest bold prediction. As for my Super Bowl MVP, I'm going to go with Tom Brady. He's going to win it because Tom Brady. And then Hank, I'll wait on your picks on Facebook. Now, this is huge because at this point, I'm pretty sure anyone can win it. You have 5 possible points to go into your win column. So,
I can't still.
possibly, I gotta double check. I'll let you know after the show. But anyways, guys, that pretty much wraps it up. So we have 2 Patriots, a Ram. Hank is an unknown. Indifferent. Non-binary.
It was a great podcast again. Thanks to everybody for listening. Follow us at 2 Birds and a Third. On Facebook, on Twitter, we had 2 Birds and Third. Look at our new and improved website at the number 2 Birds and a number 3 RD 2birdsandathird.com. And please follow us on
Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Follow us on everything, guys. Make sure you keep checking in too because we're going to be coming out with a lot of new updates, more weekly content, more daily content. We're going to start adding small breakdowns as well. So we're going to take the full podcast where you get to hear all of this. You'll still get to hear us live on Wednesdays, but we are also going to break it down. And you guys are going to be able to hear sections of our podcast too. If you just want to listen to the Super Bowl picks, jump to that. If you want to listen to our yearly awards, we'll have that too. So stay tuned, everything like that, and you guys will hear it all here on 2 Birds and a Third.
And NFL's ending soon, so we're gonna have basketball coming in. Look for our show with Ricky to talk about the basketball side of here.
We got spring training coming up.
Baseball's right around the corner.
NHL's coming up for the playoffs as well.
Sharks are going to this Stanley Cup, but that's it, guys. We're going to go ahead and end it right there. Thanks for listening. For Hank, Ricky, and Josh,